Hi everyone. Thank you for joining the webinar today. Oops, sorry. We're just going to give people a chance to join, and we will then get started. Hi everyone. Thank you for joining the webinar today. We're just going to give people a chance to join, and then we will get started. Think we can begin. It is a small group today, but hopefully you'll find it very useful. My name is Sahil. I'm Key Partnerships Manager at Big Give. So I may have spoken with you over email. Later in the call, Bethany, our Marketing Comms Manager, will be joining us. And we also have Hayley, who will be delivering today's webinars, and she is from Be Yellow. So we're really grateful for Hayley for sharing her knowledge and expertise with us. And just before we get started, just going to do some housekeeping. Please set your chat reply to everyone. So you can use the chat function at the bottom of your Zoom panel to introduce yourselves, to share any ideas as well. And if you have any tech issues, please put them in the chat and we will get to them as soon as possible. If you have any questions for the Q&A portion of the webinar, you should see a Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom panel. Please click on that and put your questions in that box, and then we will address them in the Q&A portion of the webinar. If this is a small group, we may actually even allow you to unmute, so you can raise your hand and you can ask a question directly to us, just to break up a bit of us speaking. So there is a raise hand function in the chat function which you can use. If you have any accessibility needs, there is the caption button. So I think if you click on more, you should see that button turn on the transcription if you need that. And a reminder that this webinar is being recorded, and we will be posting it on our YouTube channel, so you can watch it again and share it with colleagues. And as ever, if you have any additional questions after the webinar has ended, contact us at hello@biggive.org and we will be happy to help. But I will now hand over to Hayley.
Hi everyone, it's great to be here. I'm really excited about this presentation. I love this topic, and it's really important as well, especially for charities. And I look forward to giving you the information, and I invite questions, and at the end as well, I'm looking forward to hearing your questions. So just a little bit about me is that I've been in PR for 10 years now, probably closer to 15. And I've worked across various roles, including Deputy Head of PR for Pride in London. I'm also a TEDx speaker and run a campaign called Flow Aid, where we provide free menstrual products to homeless women. I am the director of PR agency Be Yellow, and we specialise working with purpose-driven and social impact organisations, charities and businesses. And I champion sustainability in business. I sit on the Willow Review Government Task Force, and I'm also the communications director for Real Life Learning, which is a South African social enterprise. And I also mentor small charities and businesses in both PR and social content. So what are the funding challenges for women's charities? Because obviously this is all very unique to your specific charity. And again, please.
Hey, sorry, hey, are you sharing this?
Am I not sharing?
It is not sharing, sorry.
Oh, one sec. So sorry. I thought that was sharing.
Okay.
There we go.
Yeah,
Sorry,
there we go.
I thought that
That's
was
okay.
sharing. Apologies. Running away of myself. Yeah, so the funding challenges for women's charities is all very unique to your charity, and I'd be really interested to hear if you have any specific challenges that you face. Please post in the chat box. But I think the general challenges are sort of the need for constant education and to show why women and girls issues matter, donor fatigue and competition in a crowded charity sector, smaller budgets for marketing and PR, and social content limit visibility, and and dealing with sensitive issues such as gender-based violence, reproductive rights, these can deter some funders and make it a lot more difficult to fundraise. So this presentation is all about how we can create social content across different platforms in order to tackle these challenges and increase our fundraising efforts. So the content challenges for women's charities is, again, limited resources, budget, and overstretched teams. Smaller charities, in particular grassroots campaigns, face this more whether they have work predominantly with volunteers or they have smaller teams and they're unable to create good, consistent content, and definitely do not have the budgets to hire content creators and social media teams. Sensitive storytelling and safeguarding concerns, and goes back to sort of dealing with sensitive issues. And how do we avoid poverty porn while still moving donors to act and fundraise for us? How do we educate and not exploit in that sense? Content fatigue and standing out, the need to create fresh, unique content to keep audiences engaged, to keep the algorithm happy. Again, it's a lot of work, there's a lot of investment in time and energy that some small, at the most charities actually don't have. Measuring impact and tracking ROI and understanding how to do that across social media. Creating messaging around complex issues and topics that resonate and also prevent people from getting blocked on socials. Content overload and creating content for multiple social platforms. And content strategy and keeping up with trends and content creation. We will address all of these throughout the presentation, and again, how we can tackle these, and how small charities can create consistent content without breaking the bank. Why social matters for fundraising. Social media is a fantastic tool for fundraising, especially for smaller, more niche charities. It's a cost-effective tool to raise awareness and funds. It helps reach new, potentially global audiences that you wouldn't be able to access elsewhere. It provides a platform for storytelling and education, and raising awareness about what your charity is doing and the work that you are doing and what you are achieving, who you are helping. It's an excellent tool for building community, and it creates real-time engagement and potentially viral opportunities. One of the biggest questions I get when educating about social content from anyone, businesses, charities, organizations, is how do we go viral? It's not an exact science, and we will discuss this throughout the presentation. The power of storytelling. Again, social media is a fantastic platform and fantastic tool for storytelling. And storytelling is a fantastic way to bridge the gap between donations and charity. Fundraising is all about connection. It's not about the transactions. We need to create emotionally driven content that drives action and creates authenticity and therefore builds trust. And that is the special formula in order to increase your fundraising. If people trust you and they can have that emotional connection, they're more likely to fundraise, they're more likely to donate, they're more likely to share your content, they're more likely to engage with it. So it creates that nice little chain of potentially new donors, more donors, and higher rates of fundraising. Research shows that stories are 22 times more memorable than facts alone. And social media is a fantastic platform to create these stories and develop these stories. We've seen it across Instagram and TikTok recently with everything that's going on in the world and how people engage with the people's stories and those who are affected. And human stories inspire and motivate, and they're also more likely to be favored by the social media algorithm. People buy people, social media buys people. They like human interest stories. And the more that people engage and the more the algorithm shares them, so it's always really important to sort of show that human side of your charity, and whether that's a case study, whether that's a story, whether that's even a volunteer story or someone from the team, is that videos that have faces in them and videos that have people in them are more likely to be favored by the algorithm, and therefore increases engagement. Oh, can you see the logos for the socials? Is that, or is that just my?
We can only see the TikTok
Yeah,
one.
I'm really sorry about that. I don't know what's happened there. So anyway, We all know what the platforms are. So the key social platforms are TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, and if you use it, X. I put it on there because some people are still using it. I don't think it's the right platform for grassroots charities. And I think two of the main ones now, and again, it depends on what you're doing and what you're trying to achieve, are TikTok and Instagram. But it is when it comes to social platforms, I always say is sort of choose one and do it well. We can get very overwhelmed, very stressed, and very busy trying to create different content for different platforms and trying to ensure that we're across all of them. And it's just not necessary. And this is where strategy comes in. And then we will talk about this briefly. But understanding where your audiences are, understanding where they're engaging, where they're when they're just where they're conversing and discussing and sharing content, and what platform that is going to make life a lot easier to be like, okay, we're going to strategize for this particular platform or these two particular platforms. There used to be a world where we did used to have to create separate content for separate platforms, but that's just not the case anymore. I always say trial and error content. So if you're creating a video, share it across different platforms and see, and it can be the same video, and see which platform gets the most response and the most engagement. And that's where you can start sort of shifting your energy and your focus. So if you're finding that you're getting predominantly more on a Facebook reel, engagement on a Facebook reel than you are on TikTok, then put your energy into sort of creating reels for Facebook, and using that one platform. Is that it's not a sort of a throw something at the wall until something sticks. It's really sort of try and hone down what platform is working best for you. And sort of don't scattergun across all different platforms, because it is just a waste of time and energy when one platform can be doing a lot more than 5 platforms all at once. So who's made a difference through social media? These are two charities that I find that they've done particularly well on socials. So you've got SmartWorks. So SmartWorks uses TikTok very well to fundraise. I think their last fundraise was they raised 114,000 for their Step Up for SmartWorks campaign. And this was amplified through their social media, predominantly TikTok. And it was storytelling mixed with data and sharing sort of who they were helping, how they were helping them, and why it's important. And then you have Not a Phase as well. So Not a Phase does very well with using content creators and influencers and their partners to create content for them, and uses celebrities to sort of boost their efforts without having to do it themselves. So they again very heavily based on TikTok, and they use sort of TikTok powered activism in order to raise and boost their fundraising efforts. So Nicola Coughlin from Dairy Girls and Bridgerton promoted their campaign and their fundraising efforts on her socials, and they raised over £70,000 in a day. So they're a very, very good example of a charity that sort of uses outside resources through social media and outside content creation. And we'll talk about this again down the briefly. So yeah, in order to raise funds and boost their awareness. It's definitely worth looking at their TikToks to sort of see what they do and how they do it. And sort of see what content works. So content that works. So there's a rule for social media is that to predominantly share, show and tell, don't promote. So for every one promotional video or post that you're talking about your charity, is that for the next 3 is that sort of no selling, no promotion, just storytelling. Again, goes back to like that could be anything. So whether that's a story or someone talking about how they've been helped by your charity or supported by your charity, a donor talking about why they donated, and why they chose to donate, or a video talking about where the donations go to. It could be a volunteer talking about why they consistently volunteer for your charity, if they keep coming back, or if they're doing particularly amazing things within the organization. There's a lot of things that can be done, and I call it sort of like it's a sort of cycle of 3s. So you don't have to keep reinventing the wheel with content either. So you can say, okay, for the first video, we're going to do 3 videos a week. And the first video is going to be promotional. We're going to talk about our charity, what we do, who we are, who we help. And then the next one is going to be a case study or a story, someone sharing their story. The next one is going to be a volunteer video. And then the next one is going to be a donor. So then you start again. So you go back to the beginning, you say it's going to be a promotional one, and you just keep sticking to that cycle. So you know exactly what you're going to post, but every time it's like a different story, a different volunteer, a different donor, different promotional aspect. So it's just that. So then you know that you have that cycle of content that you consistently feeding into. So you're not having to think about different ideas for every single video. Build a bank of story assets. This is going to be really helpful because it just gives you consistent content that you can keep posting out, whether that's videos, photos, quotes, outside external content, asking people to do videos for you. And the wonderful world about social media now is you aren't demoted down the algorithm for duplicate content. In fact, if a piece of content does really well and gets really strong engagement, then you post that again sort of a few weeks down the line, you'll actually be rewarded for it in the algorithm because you're again posting content that's doing well and it's probably going to do well again. So the algorithm is going to boost that up for you naturally. So you don't, again, it's not about reinventing the wheel every time you create content. It's about sort of using what works. And again, we'll tap into this through trends and other ideas in a second. Sorry. So the perfect formula is impact, urgency, and hope. So you show the impact of your charity, the impact of your donations, the impact of the work that you're doing. Featured with urgency of being like, we need more donations now. This is what we need for now. This is where the donation is going to go to. This is, and then with hope being like, if you give us these donations, we can have more impact, and show sort of like a plan. So be like, okay, so if you give us these donations now, in 3 years, this is what this could look like, or this is how the people that we could help. This is the change that we are going to make. So it's sort of like that future hope of being like, if you give it like it's urgent now, but it's also we have this long-term plan for our donations. So sort of like allow people to invest through that formula. And then trending content is just the easiest yet hardest way to create content that is going to do well. It's easy because the content is already there. If you're seeing something that's trending on social media, and you think you can make something relevant to that for your charity, then like it's just recreating that content but making it relevant to you. It's difficult because it's trending. You only have a certain window to jump on it, and the time you don't have the time access, or there's limitations there, so it's not always possible. But it just means that if something is trending, it's people are engaging with it. This kind of content is being boosted. You see it all the time on Instagram and TikTok, especially, where people are tapping into trends, and whether that's a trend in music or caption, or content, it just makes it a lot easier to sort of make, okay, we don't have anything to post this week. This is trending. We can make it relevant. Let's create something similar. So avoiding pitfalls on social media when creating content is, as we've discussed before, avoid poverty porn, create stories that empower and not exploit. So it's positive storytelling, happy storytelling is probably one of the most effective videos on social media, is that sort of showing the phoenix rising from the ashes as such. We see it with the Gaza content at the moment, with all of the people sharing their positive stories and what they're doing, and they do really well. And they get lots of fundraising, and it's important to access that positivity, and not always the doom and gloom of the stories. And I know that it can be difficult sometimes because the topics that we address and the topics that we work on and the people that we help, and it can be quite challenging, but sharing those empowering, motivating, positive stories, it can really, really aid your fundraising efforts. Keep narratives community-led and not donor-centered. So focus on your community and the people that you help. It's great to have a call to action. It's great to show where the donations are going to, sorry. But it's always really important to lead with community-led content. Even if you have a donor-led story, talk about where that get them to talk about where their donations are going to and who they're helping and the community, rather than I donated this amount of money because. So it's just about consistently showing that community and how you're supporting them, and then the faces of that community as well. And then, of course, line social content with fundraising goals. This goes back to having a very solid social strategy. Again, clear call to actions, understanding what you're asking for, why you're asking for it. And for me, is like the big content, and I do it in PR as well. And I discussed it in the presentation on Monday, is that the why, always answer and ask the question why. Is that you've got the where, the how, the who, the what is giving them the information, but the why is giving them the emotional connection. Why are we doing this? Why do we need your donations? Why is it important? Why do these people need, why do the women and girls that we support need your help? It's just that why is that emotional connection. So whenever you're creating content, always have that in your head of being like, what's the why of this? Why is this content? Why should people engage in this content? Why are we creating this content? Why are we looking at, like, yeah, why are we asking for donations? It's that why that is really important. So you can answer in the call to action, like what, where, and how, but the overall content art should be the why. And I've said it before, don't post content without a strategy. And that isn't just about having an overall social media strategy. That's about having a strategy for each piece of content. So as I just said, sort of like when you post your content, ask those questions: why, what, where, and how. What is going to make people engage? How are we going to get the donations that we're looking for through this content? Where do people donate, and why are they donating? So it's like those questions are going to really help you shape that content and create like really engaging content if you really understand the answers to those questions. Start with strategy. I don't do anything when it comes to social content or PR without strategy. It just doesn't work otherwise. Your strategy is your blueprint, your foundation for everything that you create. And without it, you just won't create engaging content. And you won't create content that reaches the right people or reaches your goals either. So within your strategy, you need to look at your audience definition. Who are your audience? Who are your target donors? Who do you want people to fundraise? Who are you speaking to? What's your engagement strategy? So when you post a video out, how are you engaging with that? So are you going to respond to comments? Are you going to create further content off the back of that content? Are you going to do an IG live to discuss that content more? Is it going to be something simple as just asking your team to share the content? So what's your engagement strategy once you post that, once that video goes live? Are you going to message particular donors with the link to the content that are already donating? Do you have that community in place? Goals and purpose of the content. Again, it goes back to the what, where, how, and why. So what are you asking people? What is the content, and why are you posting it? Develop a posting schedule. So I always say to people, and it scares the hell out of them, you need to post 3 times a week on social media. That's a lot. I understand that, especially for small teams, especially for small charities. Try posting at least once a week. So if you can, set aside sort of a few hours a week or a day a week. I do it for myself, where you just create a video and you post it. It doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't need to be edited. It doesn't need to be beautifully presented. Just run with it and see what happens off the back of your strategy. And then say, okay, right. So every Tuesday we're going to post a video, and this is what we're going to talk about. And then goes back to that pillar of content, right? The circle of content is like promotion, donor, volunteer, story. Okay, we know that we're having these content. We just need to get the ingredients, if that makes sense, for each piece. Key messaging and tone of voice. So how do you want to present yourself on social media? What is the messaging you want to put across? How are you going to put across it? What's your caption going to be? What are you asking people? And keep that consistent. Keep that consistent across all videos, so it becomes recognizable, that when people read something, they'll be like, that's this charity. Oh, there's this campaign. I recognize that. I recognize that content. I recognize that messaging. So just keep that consistent across every video. And when you do things like partnerships and corporate collaborations, brand partnerships, charity collaborations, it just means that that key messaging is consistent across all those collaborations as well. So it's instantly recognizable. Platforms and format. So understanding, it goes back to understanding what platforms that you want to use and be posting content on, and what format. So are you going to be creating short form videos and reels? Are you going to be sharing photos? Are you going to be sharing quotes? Are you going to be sharing all of it, but one at a time, and then see what works best? So again, sort of understanding what you can have available to you, understanding what's going to be easier for you, and understanding what content you can realistically create. Obviously, video does best on social media now, so I would always recommend creating video. But again, I know that's not always possible. So like sort of real sharp content can work quite well as well, like photos and quotes. But make sure at some point you are throwing videos into the mix. Create a content calendar. So include awareness days coming up that are relevant to what you do and your charity and who you support. If you have any internal events coming up, any particular events coming up for the community that the people you support, whether you've like put them in a calendar and so then you know that you have sort of you can create content around that. So even if you're not sort of creating as consistently as you like, you say, okay, we've got this big moment coming up. We need to be talking about it. Or we've just had this incredible donation. We need to talk about it. We've just expanded into a different country. Let's talk about it. So we've just like had Volunteers Week is coming up. Talk about the volunteers. Like there's always something to talk about. It's just, yeah, it's making those big, like if you're talking about those big moments, the consistency won't matter as much, though it is still important. Competitor analysis, it just goes back to look at the Not a Phase and SmartWorks, what they're doing on TikTok, the content they're creating. Look at other charities within your space or similar spaces that are doing well, that are having engaging content, that are creating good videos, and look at what they're doing. The wonderful, wonderful thing about social media now is you don't have to keep creating new content, and TikTok actually rewards you for creating duplicate content. So if you're seeing someone in your spend on the charity or organization or individual activist in your space that is creating really good, strongly engaged content, copy it. Make it yours, but copy it, because that would TikTok will see that that's being engaged with. So then you're creating similar content, and then TikTok's like, this similar content is already being engaged with. Let's bump this up the algorithm so we get the same results. So it's just about sort of just being really aware of what other people were posting, and then sort of replicating that to make it your own. It's the same as trending content, really. Risk and safeguarding, just obviously just make sure that everyone is safe, that you're not putting anything out that can exploit or any risk, cause any risk to you or the people that you support. Just make sure that put those procedures and policies are in place, and they're echoed across the team so everyone knows what the policies are when creating content or engaging on social media or anything like that. Understand organic versus paid if you have a budget for paid. Understanding what platforms you need if you are advertising, understanding what platforms are the best to advertise on. Understanding what kind of content you want to be pushing out, or like whether it's organic versus paid. Paid is obviously going to be more promotional. The best thing is Spark ads on TikTok, in my opinion. So I'm a huge TikTok fan. I think that Spark ads are great because if you have a particular video that is doing really well and getting really good engagement, you can put some money behind that to boost it even more, with clear call to actions, which can be really effective. So if you do have budget for paid, it's again just having that strategy of understanding what it is that you want to promote and what your goals are around that as well to get sort of the most for your money. Partnerships and influencers, absolutely crucial when it comes to sort of Not a Phase is a great example, as I said, in using partnerships and influencers to do the content for them. whether or not you have any patrons or you have access to influencers or a budget or a small budget to pay micro ones, just getting people talking about your campaign, investing in your campaign is they have engaged audiences on TikTok. They have content that's what people are already engaging with. So it would make sense for them to talk about your charity and your goals on their platform, because that's going to access a whole different, bigger audience that you might not be able to on your own social pages. So it is always really useful. Again, partnerships, charity collaborations, brand partnerships are always also a really effective way of reaching wider new audiences that you may not be able to do on your own. And it just takes the pressure off and the work out of creating content when you're asking other people to do it for you. Content pillars. So again, it just goes back to what I was saying about that cycle. So understanding sort of like if you've got 3 or 4 videos going out in like over a few weeks. So again, it's like, hey, we know this week is going to be promotional. We know next week's going to be donor. Next week's going to be storytelling. It's just understanding what those pillars are and the information and education and stories that you want to put out there, and doing it in sort of like a cycle. So you're not having to think of different videos every time you post over like a 3-month period. It's just week like 4x4 or 3x3, however you want to do it. And measurement and KPI. The most important thing for social content is that how are you measuring the effectiveness of your content? How are you we'll talk about this at the end of the presentation as well, about ways you can measure it, but sort of like if your goal is obviously fundraising and donation, what is the social content meeting those goals, and how? And then looking at sort of what content is working, what isn't, what needs to be adjusted, going back to the strategy. So yeah, we'll talk about that at the end in more detail. Easy content ideas, day in the life of, so that can be in the day of life of someone that you're supporting. It can be in the day of life of your CEO or founder, day in the life of a volunteer. And again, it just goes to be like, hey, can you just create this content for us? So it just makes it easier as well. And behind the scenes, whether that's you working in an office or the warehouses, or whether you're showcasing the work that you're doing on the ground, anything like that is really, really exciting for donation, particularly for donors, because they can see the active work that you guys are doing. Case studies and stories, we've gone over this, just sharing those stories of the women and girls that you're helping. Founder FAQs, whether that's through an IG live of the founder answering questions, or if you regularly get like frequently asked questions through the website or email or whatever platform, then like use a video to answer those common questions. Donation destinations, so again, sort of show where those donations are going, where they've gone, who they're helping, how they're helping. And then donor stories and volunteer stories, which we've discussed as well. So these are all really easy content ideas that you can create quite quickly, and then using other people to create that content for you, so you're not having to sort of sit there and do it yourself. Social media trends, we touched base this briefly. So it's again, follow the trends and make them yours. You'll move as quick as the trends do. So you're not always going to be able to tap into the trends all the time, because they do move so quickly and you only have small windows. But it's best just to keep an eye on them. Look at what's trending. And if there is something really, really big that you think, oh, this would be really relevant to us, we can create something really fun around this or really important around this. And just jump onto it. And it's literally, it could be a 10-15 second video. It doesn't even need to be that long. Just copying the trend or doing what that is. And that's like, that could be the content, the caption, the audio, anything. I always tend to put like trending audios over my videos when I post them, because they're trending and it's just an easy way to jump, like to get up a video on the algorithm, or more people eyes on your stories or whatever, because it's trending audio. So that's another easy, quick way to make sure that you're jumping on trending content. Use the trend but add value. It's all well and good creating like a video that's trendy and fun, but if you don't have those goals, and if you're not adding value, and if you're not answering the why, the video might get engagement, but it's not going to reach your goals and it's not going to help you in any way. So make sure you have that sort of like clear value, education aspect, call to action still, even when you're using a trend. And the call to action could be as simple as just adding it to the caption. Even if there's not a place for it in the video, you can just add it to the caption. Trending captions and text, as I said, it's not always just about like the video content that trending. Sometimes trending captions and text are really, really cool to use as well. And that could just mean creating a video with a quote, like just a standard sort of background video or lifestyle video with a quote over it or a caption over it. So it's quite easy to those kind of trends are quite easy to jump on. You can do that quite quickly. And as I said, continue to add the call to action, and don't get overwhelmed. Don't feel that you have to jump on every trend all of the time. Like it's not possible. It's not even possible for people that have teams. It's just if something really sticks out and you're like, we need to do something, that's when you do it. It's more important to have that consistency in creating content that's more aligned with your goals and the strategy than it is to jump on trends. But trending content can get most of the time get the engagement that you're looking for. And again, it goes back to the question of like, how do we go viral? It depends what you mean by virality, but it's the trending is more likely to get those numbers up, engagement. And also now it's focus on engagement rates on videos and content. Don't worry about your follower numbers anymore. It's not important. You can have 100, 200 followers on Instagram or TikTok or wherever, and your content can still be getting thousands and tens of thousands of views because that's what the social media platforms are focusing on. Is the content. It's not the followers anymore. So I know a lot of the charities here are people engaging in a niche, and girl and women a niche anyway. And I know a lot of questions that I get is like, I'm a niche charity, I'm a niche business, like social media doesn't work for me. No, it does, it really well, especially TikTok. And social media platforms reward community-driven content. And it can be really effective in building those regional niche communities or specific topics or areas or groups of people, demographics that you work with, that you can really connect with on social media. A good way to do that is tapping into niche related trends and culture. So again, it's just researching, looking at what hashtags are working, looking at what content is there within your space, and then tapping into that. Always, if you are looking to build that niche community on social media, always mention your niche, always mention your community, who you're supporting, your location, if that's relevant, and look at and then sort of like use those kind of hashtags, the right hashtags, and in your caption as well, always include that content. And then people within that demographic within your space will be able to find you through that. Encourage your existing audience to engage with your content. So if you have a niche audience, and you do, encourage them to engage with your content. Because if you've got suddenly this niche audience with a specific audience engaging with your content, that's going to very quickly build a very niche community. And tell TikTok that this, or social media, sorry, rather, that this is your niche, and then it will get pushed up into that niche algorithm. So then more donors within that space, more people interested in that space will be seeing your content, and you'll have more eyes on it than you would sort of just trying to be more general. Consistently share your experience and expertise within your niche. Again, it goes back to the storytelling, who you're helping, talk about the charity, talking about what you're doing, who you are, and why. Again, it goes back to that why you're working in this niche, why you're helping these particular group of women and girls, why you're working in this particular space. And then that will hone down your content more as well and build that community that you're looking for. Niche storytelling, again, goes back to sort of the why. And then work with influencers and experts within your niche, whether that's brand partnerships, corporate, other charities, individuals, activists, that can also share their stories, share their experiences, share their work. And then all of this will help you create that sort of niche, very engaged community on social media. So creating content with no experience is very easy to do. You don't need to invest in expensive equipment. Your phone is your best friend. Natural lighting is great. AI content and editing. So lots of platforms to create, to edit, and lots of platforms to create AI content if that's something that you wanted to do. Use a tripod for stability and sturdiness and different heights and different angles. As I said, repurpose content, duplicate content. If something does well, reshare it again down the line. And it's all about progress and not perfection. Long gone are the days where you need to create a perfectly edited video for people to engage with on Instagram. Every single platform now will favor raw footage. They will favor unedited videos. They don't want perfection. They want real content that people can engage with. So do not worry about it being perfect. It takes too much time, and B, it's just not worth it. It's just post and just and the more that you do it as well, like one of the biggest fears that people have is don't want to be in video or the content's going to be rubbish or it's not going to be engaged with. It's all trial and error. It's all the more that you do it, practice makes perfect. The more that you do it, the more you'll get used to what works. And the better content you will get. I can promise you, anyone whose content is good and engaged, they will tell you that when they first started posting, their content was horrible. They hated it. And it was awful and it didn't work. No one has ever posted the perfect video the first time. It takes time and it takes understanding of what works, what platform is right for you, how the content that you're putting out. It's just again, it goes back to that consistency as well of like trying to just be consistent with creating content just so you get used to it. And just so you can start to understand what works. And that's the only way that you're going to sort of start creating strong content. So creating engaging videos. Include the hook and call to action in the first 3 seconds. Also include the call to action in the caption. People engage with people, as I said, human-centric content wins on social media. Keep the video under 1 minute. I always say 30 seconds is optimal, but it depends on what your message is and what you're trying to get across. And the first 6 seconds is when people will choose to either continue watching or disengage. So the first 6 seconds need to include everything that you need to tell them and be really engaging. User-generated content. Again, it goes back to asking volunteers to create content, activists, experts, partners, people within the company, and people that you're supporting, women that you've helped, if that's a possibility. So that user-generated content is really important because it allows you to share those stories, but also it takes the time off your hands of creating content. People are doing it for you. Make sure your content is inclusive. So if you're make sure you share a lot of like varied stories, diverse voices, underrepresented voices within your space that's relevant to your charity. And again, experiment with formats and platforms. Just you'll start to see very quickly what works and what doesn't, and what platforms work and what doesn't. So it's just experiment with different, like, okay, short form video, photos, reels, interviews, IG lives. What's working for us? If you keep posting different formats over a period of time, you'll see very quickly what works and what doesn't. Aim to post 3 times per week. I know this isn't possible for everyone. It is what the social media algorithm wants, unfortunately, but once a week to begin with is probably okay. As long as you're keeping it consistent. It's worse to have a dormant platform. And if you do have a dormant platform and it's been dormant for more than a year, start a new page because you won't win. TikTok would have just announced your platform so far down the algorithm that it's just going to take too much effort to bring it back up. Start a new page. Consistency is key, as I keep saying. So if you are posting once a week, post once a week on the same day. As I said, raw footage is preferred. Strategy behind each piece of social content, understanding the why. Evenings and lunch breaks always work best for content posting. So these are the sort of optimal times to post. And Tuesday is and always has been the most engaged day on social media. For some reason, Tuesday is the best day to post. Use a mix of niche and trending hashtags. Captions should be clear and short. And even something I haven't mentioned is use TikTok like a search engine. It has the TikTok isn't going up against Instagram and Facebook. It's going up against Google. It's positioned itself as a search engine. It's a fantastic place to search for content ideas, topics that are trending, things that are people talking about. So use use phrases and sentences when you search rather than hashtags on TikTok. And you can see sort of like what's working in your space, what people are talking about, and having that information is powerful because you can start creating content around that and knowing that it will get engaged with. Build an online community, respond to comments, comment on other relevant videos, because this will show that you are active, and you get promoted for that. It's like a job, right? Clearly showcase your impact. Always show your impact, whether that's where the donations are going, people that you've helped, anything big that comes in, promote it. Involve people in your decisions. So when you're deciding to create content, bring in the team, bring in those perspectives, bring in those ideas, because the team will have them. Social media it's a collaborative process. So bring in other people from the team that you think that can bring in those fresh perspective of new ideas. Collaborate with other creators, as I said, and partners and brand partnerships. Two-way engagement. It goes back to sort of the responding to comments. Comment if someone comments on your page, comment on theirs. Just create sort of like build that community, build that conversation and that flow. Make people feel they're part of a mission. So if people are engaging with your content, make them feel like they're involved. So like present to them what if they were to donate, how would they get involved in the process? What would their involvement be? Make them feel included. You're not just asking for their money, you're asking for their involvement, you're asking for their help. And what does that look like? And consistent posting and tone of voice, as we've discussed. Free social media tools. These are fantastic. I use them for everything. Canva to create content, CapCut for editing if you wanted to edit. The TikTok Creative Center is amazing. It's something the other social media platforms don't have. TikTok Creative Center will give you every single bit of information and data that you are looking for and that you need in order to create engaging content. So they will show you sort of the demographics, who's engaging with your post, the ages, the locations, and what content is trending. It will give you everything if you have a business account, and it's a really, really useful tool to see sort of what other people are engaging with and to create that engaging content. And ChatGPT, it's the best. Well, not really, but it's great for like asking it for like what trending content, finding out ideas, looking at what your competitors are talking about, what other charities are sharing. It's just a really, really, really great tool for creating social content. I use it all the time. And there is a more sustainable, environmentally friendly one if you did want to use it, and it's called Green PT. But you have to pay, I think it's like £10 a month. But it's a lot more environmentally friendly, but pretty much the same platform. And finally, measuring impact. One of the most important things you can do when creating social content, because you need to understand that it is meeting your goals and you are getting the donations and fundraising that you are looking for. So when you're measuring impact, I would recommend sort of if you're creating reports or creating an impact report, whether that's for internally or externally, look at the partnerships growth and donor retention through your social content. Gather supporter quotes and donation quotes and like find out why they donated, what content spurred them to donate. Social reach versus donation spikes. Click-throughs versus conversions. So who's clicking through your website through your content? Who's clicking through to your page when they find your content? How are they engaging with your content? Are they leaving comments? Are they sharing? Are they liking? Are they sharing to their stories? Like, what are they doing when they see your content? Use social analytic platforms. All the platforms have it. TikTok's the best one, but Instagram has quite in-depth analytics. Facebook does too, especially if you have a business account with them. It will provide you all of the information and the data that you need in order to see what isn't working. And as I said, sort of create regular reports, whether that's just to see what's like for your own internal use and to see what's working, or if you did want to produce like a donor impact report off the back of your social content, and then I'd recommend doing that too. But again, that's a lot of time. So thank you for listening. I really enjoyed that. I hope you did as well. And I'd welcome any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Hayley. We have a couple of questions so far, so we'll get into them. So Katie has asked, can you remind me of that cycle of content promotion again?
Yes, so it's what for one promotional video or one promotional piece of content, which is basically talking about your charity, what you do, who you are, who you support. Then the next three videos should be um, non-promotional. So it can be a story about someone that you've helped. It could be a donor story about why they donated, where their donation's gone. It could be a volunteer story. So it's just like share that sort of the the first video would be the what of who you are, and then the next video should be the why of why you're doing this.
Great. And then Katie's also asked, can you explain what you mean by trending audio? Do you mean trending music?
Trending music and audio. So if you click when you click on when you create a video or a story, and you do the music overlay, it will give the option to choose from the trending audio and music, and it will give you a list of what's trending at that moment. So then you can choose from that list something that's relevant to the video. Always keep it relevant to the video. Don't add music that isn't relevant to the video because you would just be demoted for it.
Great. And we have Beth on the webinar that you joined us. So I just wanted to ask you, as our marketing manager, do you have any tips yourself about posting during the campaign and how to like keep content fresh?
Mm.
I mean, to be honest, all of the tips that Hayley provided have been really comprehensive. Like, there's not much I can add to that, to be very honest with you. However, what I would say, is one, you can always tag Big Give in your content. This just means that we are able to see it and also share it and try to get more people engaging with it. So I would definitely encourage you, where possible, to tag us. I would love to reshare your content when we can. And I think, you know, I think probably as Hayley has mentioned already, just making sure you're really sharing that key message of the fact that donations are going to be doubled during this week. And that's what makes this campaign different, probably from any other campaign that you're doing throughout the year. The fact people know that no matter how much they give, no matter the size of their donation can be doubled and make double the difference for your charity. So if you're able to really illustrate that impact and make sure that you're highlighting that urgency of why to donate now and when to donate, I think that's really important as part of your content.
Thanks, Beth. We have a question from Apurva. Thank you so much for sharing. It was great. My question is, my team and I mostly work from home and feel like it's hard to film content. We only do static content at the moment. I'm wondering if you had any tips on how to make videos if you work from home.
Yeah, great question. And it can be difficult. I completely understand your challenge. But maybe just do a video of you talking about why you work for the charity and what you enjoy, what your goals are. Just talking to camera. Those videos do so well. As I said, it just goes back to the fact that it doesn't need to be perfect and it doesn't need to be an outstanding blockbuster video. If the majority of videos, especially on Instagram, are literally people just talking to the camera, sort of a day in the life of you working from home from the charity, things like that, that work really well. And again, it goes back to sort of that user generated content, is asking partners and other people that you support to create that content for you, so you're not having to create it.
I would say, just to add to that as well, obviously throughout COVID, we all had to kind of work around making videos at home. And one thing that made it quite easy for us at Big Give was just putting together some really easy filming instructions, particularly for people that we wanted to film. So making sure, they're filming in portrait and they're in a quiet location, and that you've given them maybe 2 to 3 lines of script that they can literally say to camera if you want like a key message for them to say specifically, and just trying to make it as easy as possible for them, especially if they have no experience of filming themselves as well. So that's another handy tip for you.
Yeah, no, that's a great tip. And it's just like little things as well. It's like, I know that last week one of the big trends was sort of like owning a sausage dog. And it's just like thinking outside the box a little bit. Like if you're working from home and you have a sausage dog or a dog or any type of pet, like people love animals. It's like it doesn't need to be necessarily entirely linked to everything that you're doing for the charity. It's like, this is why I work from home. Oh, this is my helper for the day. And just sort of like share that as well. Just those little tiny little snippets that could be like a 6-second video, but it's something to post.
Great. Those are really, yeah, helpful answers. I haven't seen any other any other questions, but I'll just give everyone just one more minute to like put any questions you have for Hayley in the chat now. But yeah, as Beth said, do tag us in any posts that you're putting on social media so we can try and share them. And then just add to this is that social media is fantastic. Also, don't neglect emails. We know from our own sort of data that emails is the biggest driver of also getting donations. So make sure you're augmenting like your social media strategy with sort of a comprehensive email strategy. But I can't see any further questions, so I think we can give some time back to everyone and end it a bit early. But I just want to say to Hayley, thank you for joining us today and delivering a fantastic presentation. Lots of great advice for charities to get cracking for their campaigns. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. Reminder, we do have the Ask Us Anything webinar on Friday, so do please join us for that, and you can have your questions ready to ask us. But in the meantime, I hope everyone has a great rest of the day.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you everyone for joining.
Yes, bye.
Bye.